Hi, this is Carol from Skill Check. Today I'm going to talk about interviewing and those best practices. And for the getting a good person for customer service and sales positions. So when you think about looking up and finding people, how do you find them? What's that interview process? Well, first, you need to know what the job requirements are. What are you requiring them to do? And I like to have checklists. They help me go through the day to, and especially with the process of interviewing, if you have a checklist, it's super important. And use the partner-based approach. Two opinions better than one. But remember, you want to conduct interviews using that 80-20 rule, something like, you know, let them talk 80% of the time instead of you talking the entire time. Because the problem is if you're talking and talking, you're not listening to what their experience is and how they're going to bring something to your company, right? So, and mix up sort of the questions too, not always just yes or no. Explain, a situation. Hey, tell me a little bit about that job. Oh, that sounds interesting. So get some more feedback from them, make them interact with you. You also want to evaluate using some kind of forms and subjective notes. One of the things that I'd like to do is I have some basic 5 questions to ask them first on the phone before they even get into your office, because that takes even longer, the process and everything, and it just takes more time. So if you can get some of these people called out, if you will, and pick just the few that you want to actually interview of the best people, it's really good to do. But it's 5 questions like, what hourly rate do you want? Tell me what days you can work. Do you have a vehicle to get to work? So just a couple of 5, things. And sometimes I do it, and sometimes my assistants or someone helping me will do it. But again, it's so important to do something like that on the phone, because so much of business and the job that they have to do every day talks. They've got to be able to talk on the phone. They've got to really shine on the phone. And if they have no interactive skills when you hear them on the phone, when they're answering these questions for you to come in for an interview, then I wouldn't even have them there, because it's just a waste of your time. So, and follow up promptly. Try to get people in as quickly as possible. Otherwise, you may lose them to someone else or some other company that's right on, looking for good people too. So let's talk about some of the type of questions. You want to talk about some behavioral questions first. Ask the candidate about describing the past experiences they've had. But this will also tell you about what they have done in the past, maybe what they do in the future. Situational questions also. Pose a hypothetical scenario. I have one that I said, hey, just wondering if someone gifted you an elephant, what would you do with it? And I have some people have said, well, that's a stupid question. No, but it's my question. And I want to see how they think on their feet. I my answer to that would be, well, I don't have anything to house them or do anything with them. So I would probably find a circus or some place that would like an elephant, or maybe a zoo, and gift it to the zoo and take it off my taxes. I don't know, something good like that. But remember, also ask things that are open-ended questions. You want to encourage them to give you details in their responses. And that's, by the questions: who, what, when, where, and why. You want to ask those W questions. So it's always important to get them talking and not just have you talking about the job and about, what you expect from them, because you want to hear what they are like and get a feel for their personality. Active listening techniques, use verbal and nonverbal cues to enhance your understanding, and follow-up questions. If you say, here's something a little weird, just ask a qualifying question and see if if they can connect it and make it work for you and make it sound good and right. So the other thing is, remember, ensure compliance by avoiding questions about age, religion, and marital status. It's just, you don't need to know those things, and it's against law, so just avoid those. But remember, you can focus on the job relevance. asking questions directly about the job skills they have and the experiences they have and where they've been to school, what they like to do on their off time. Because I've heard so many weird things when I ask them things like that. And I'm thinking, wow, I'm glad I asked that because I learned something about them. So it's important if you want to know something more about them during that process. But remember, it's also important to have evaluation forms. Use something that you can remember because the older I get, I realize that, and especially if in one day, if I've done 10 people, I also make notes on their brown hair, nicely dressed, so I can remember who that is, because you want to have those forms to be able to go back and look and remember who you spoke to. The importance of subjective notes also. Recording behaviors. Sometimes, some people sit there and just tap the foot the whole time. Or I had a lady that came in and she had a really large run in her hose. And ladies, you would know that's one of those things where, okay, maybe it happened, but when I looked at it, I thought, you know what? She put those on not and didn't just get the run just recently, because it looked like it had been quite some time before that run has been there, because it was not just a little thin thing, but it was really wide and open. And I'm thinking, I would have just nixed the hose, the pantyhose. I just think it was odd. So I know that seems like a very weird thing, but again, you want to get an impression from the person, what they're wearing, what they smell like. I mean, if they stink or if they have really huge, I have had some people in front of me that have had, I'm 3 feet away from them and I can still smell their breath. And so I'm thinking, maybe this is not the person that I'm really looking for. And I know, if they go to a interview not thinking about all of those things, it's important. So you want to also have prompt communication. You want to inform the candidates, if they're in maintain that engagement and respect with them. But you want, and again, the sooner, I think that starts, the prompt communication starts right away when you get that resume. You speak to them on the phone, you get them into the interview, you follow up with them. Is it a yay or a nay? Some people I'm right away saying, and sometimes right in the interview, I've said, you know what, probably not, this may not be for you, just based on the hours and the days that you can work or that you don't have a car. And I just thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate you coming in. That's why I love to do those 5 little questions first before they ever get into my office and waste my valuable time. Also, think about subjective interview notes, because when you're talking about subjective interview notes, you want to make sure you are listening and trying to get the right information from this person in the limited time you have. And believe me, when sometimes, people get in there, but if you have a structured interview, it's going to be more consistent and fair with when you do it the same with all of the candidates you're interviewing. And they're not going to all go the same. I really don't mean that, but your interviewing style needs to be consistent and fair, and you'll get better hiring decisions when you do that. And it ensures that balance of assessment of candidates. And that's why I have the 5 things I check. And then once they're there, I just make all kinds of notes about their behavior and their interaction. Role of teamwork. This is a really important factor. When you are looking for people, you may have one very aggressive manager and you're looking for an assistant. You might want to find someone that's not as aggressive and maybe that likes to have a leader, would prefer a leader, and have someone that gives them direction during the day. And then you have some people that, well, like me, Desiree can say this, I like to do things on my own. I prefer not to have someone telling me what to do, though I need Desiree telling me what to do every day. But the important part of this is when you're involving supervisors and peers, think about the people that they're going to be working with, and make sure your interview you're and getting in depth enough that you can know whether okay, are they going to work with this person well, or do you think that they're going to butt heads and have a problem? because you don't want to have that because it's so expensive just to hire someone and to get them going, and to let them go is, can be problematic. So you want to make sure you're thinking about your teamwork as you're doing this interview. The next thing is hire for character and train for skill. But when you think about this, when you're hiring for character, and I'm going to say, besides, when you're looking at their character, who they are, you can train the rest. But I will say there are some owners out there that don't know the job and they can't train it. Then you probably should have a property management company helping you, because the property management company will have people that know how to do this and can do it and can even do all of the interviewing. And a lot of times I have said, the owner said, let me talk to the last person, the ones you really like, or maybe the two you like, and then I'll make the decision. But I have to work with them, so I give them the best person generally. When you think about interviewing and the best practices for customer service and sales position, remember that the time that you spend up front getting the right person and not being in a hurry just to get the place filled or someone there, it is really, really important that you make sure that your team is really a team, and they're going and knowing the people that you have there now and their strengths and their weaknesses, and fill that void with someone else that makes the group better. Because as you build a team, everyone doesn't have to have the same skills. I mean, if you get a maintenance man, I've had maintenance men that were good in the office too. And I realized, like, listen, we don't have enough staff there. So this person not only likes to do the outside, but he can do the inside work too. And then I've had vice versa. I've had people that are really, really good inside, but they like, hey, I do kind of like to get out during the day and move around a little bit and clean up. And that's kind of my thing. And I like that, especially when you don't, you have very little or very few people in the office. And I will say this, especially those people that are trying to run the property remotely or with as few of people as possible, you want to make sure you have a person that is strong and that can multitask and who can answer the phone and sell. Because if they can't do the sales part of this job, I have had owners want me to look for people that can, make sure that they can clean. I'm like, you know what? I can find lots of people who can clean, but I can't find always great people who can sell and give the customer great customer service. So it's really important. And if you miss this and you don't do it very well, it's really hard sometimes to get rid of people, and especially in certain states. But that's not in all states. But again, and not only that, it's no fun. I don't take any joy. Well, a couple of times I might have taken a little joy getting rid of people who were stealing or doing other bad things to customers, or yeah, whatever they did. but but the reality of all of this is, if you have practices that you put into place to find good people, you're going to improve the experience that the customer has. And that's what all of this is about.